Marcus is sitting in his living room in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's night 3 after the storm. The grid is still down. His block is dark except for his house, because Marcus has a generator running, lights on, and the smell of food cooking drifting through a window he cracked open for ventilation. 3 houses down, someone just noticed. Marcus has supplies. Marcus has power. Marcus has a family inside that house. And Marcus just accidentally advertised all 3 of those things to every desperate person within a 2-block radius. By morning, his situation is going to be significantly more complicated than it was an hour ago. I spent time researching this after realizing my own prepared home would be an obvious target during any grid-down situation. Most people preparing for disasters focus entirely on having enough supplies. Almost nobody thinks about what having supplies signals to the people around them. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how to make your home the least interesting target on your street. Specific steps, specific products, zero cost for most of it. Because the goal isn't to fight off looters. The goal is to never become a target in the first place. Here's what nobody tells you about post-disaster looting. It isn't random. People in desperate situations don't hit houses blindly. They look for signals. Light when everyone else is dark, noise when the street is quiet, smells when neighbors haven't eaten, visible activity when other houses appear abandoned. Your home broadcasts its status constantly, and in a grid-down situation, even small signals travel farther and mean more than you'd ever expect on a normal night. After Hurricane Katrina, looting in affected New Orleans neighborhoods wasn't distributed evenly. Homes that appeared occupied but dark, no visible light, no noise, no activity, were passed over at significantly higher rates than homes showing signs of active occupation with resources. The research on this is consistent across multiple disaster scenarios. Criminals and desperate people make rapid threat assessments and move toward easier, more obvious targets. Your job is to be the boring house. The house that looks like there's nothing there worth the risk. Most people get this completely wrong and think security means looking intimidating. It doesn't. A house with a generator running, lights blazing, and a truck full of supplies visible in the driveway isn't intimidating. It's an advertisement. This is where it gets deadly. The family that looks most prepared is also the family that looks most worth targeting. Your supplies are only safe if nobody knows you have them. Step 1 is light discipline. This is a military term and it applies directly to your home. When the grid goes down and your neighborhood goes dark, any light source in your home becomes visible from outside. Candles, flashlights, battery lanterns, all of it bleeds through windows. Your solution: blackout curtains. The Decanovo blackout curtains on Amazon run about $25 for a 2-panel set and block interior light completely. Put them on every window facing the street before any emergency. When the grid dies, your house goes dark from the outside while you maintain normal light inside. Step 2 is generator discipline. A running generator is one of the loudest, most distinctive sounds in a post-disaster neighborhood. Everyone within 2 blocks hears it. Everyone knows what it means. If you run a generator, run it during daylight hours only, and only in the most sheltered, least sound-exposed part of your property. A generator running at 3 a.m. is a beacon. A generator running at noon on a noisy day blends in significantly better. And here's the part that will surprise you. Your generator exhaust is as identifiable as its sound. Carbon monoxide aside, generator exhaust has a distinctive smell. If your neighbors can smell your generator running, they know you have power and fuel. Position it downwind, away from street-facing sides of your property, with as much distance and barrier between the exhaust and your neighbors as your property allows. This is the part that almost nobody in the survival community is talking about, and it might be the most important thing in this entire video. Step 3, and this is the thing survival channels never mention, is controlled abandonment signaling. After Hurricane Harvey, some prepared Houston families deliberately made their homes look worse off than they were, leaving a broken item near the front, not clearing debris from the porch, not putting out trash cans that implied normal functioning. The signal they sent: this house already got hit, there's nothing here. Desperate people move to the next target. You're not lying to anyone. You're not harming anyone. You're making a rational decision that your family's safety matters more than your curb appeal for 72 hours. Step 4, noise discipline. Your kids, your dog, your television, all of it leaks through walls and doors. In a neighborhood that's gone quiet, voices and activity sounds travel. Keep your family in interior rooms. Keep pets calm. Keep volume low. The Adaptil Dog Calming Diffuser at about $25 on Amazon handles anxious dogs quietly, which matters more than most people realize when a stressed dog won't stop barking at 2 a.m. and you need to not be noticed. Most people will watch this and do nothing. Don't be most people. The ones who survive aren't the strongest. They're the ones who prepared before everyone else did. If you want to know what else they prepared for, stick around. Today, order blackout curtains for your street-facing windows. $25. Done in 2 minutes. That single purchase changes your home's visibility profile in every grid-down scenario you'll ever face. So tell me, right now, tonight, could someone outside your home tell that you have power, food, or supplies just by looking or listening? Drop your honest answer in the comments, because most Americans have no idea what their house is already broadcasting.